We don't know much about Kato Higashikata's stand ability beyond the fact that it allows her to store objects of variable size between individual playing cards. But even so, we can still hypothesize about its name given the circumstances surrounding it. Naturally, we would assume that, as a member of the Higashikata family, her stand name would follow the typical naming scheme established by her kin. But Kato is in a unique place. She actively chose to reject the tradition of self-sacrifice that has defined the Higashikata family for generations. She also made a show of breaking ties with her initial link to the family, that being the man she married, Norisuke. So that, combined with the fact that Araki has gone out of his way to not name her stand, has led to the general consensus that she'll be an outlier to the pre-established naming scheme. Perhaps her stand won't be a king, but rather some other card suit, most likely a queen. It's unlikely that Kato herself is a rock human, since humans and rock humans are supposed to be biologically incompatible and unable to have children, but we do know that Kato at least has some affiliation with the Demokon group. Someone needed to place the order for the rock humans that Yoshikage Kira discovered under the name of the Higashikata Fruit Parlor. Jobin wouldn't become affiliated with the rock cartel until after they had already arrived in Morio, which means that Kato is the only other option. So one potential option for her stand's name may be Queen of the Stone Age, as an allusion to her association with the rock humans. Of course, we can also tackle this from another angle. Instead, we can inspect the parallels made between Kato and Holly Joestar Kira, which were established all the way back in Chapter 58, Dawn at the Higashikata House. As Gappy's mother, Holly is shown to be this bright, angelic figure, reminiscent of the Virgin Mary, that Gappy is willing to do everything in his power to save. Meanwhile, as Jobin's mother, Kato's arrival commands attention. Holly Joestar Kira is also in a similar place to Kato, since we know she has a stand that has yet to be named, due to how she is the first person to notice Yasuo's Paisley Park. They also mirror each other visually in many ways, both sharing the same wavy bangs, but with contrasting hair colors. We already have one Queen stand in JoJolion at this point, that being Killer Queen, but the band Queen actually has 2 more songs in its discography with the word Queen in it. Those songs are a pair, being White Queen As It Began and The March of the Black Queen. Perhaps the intention is for JoJolion's 2 major mother figures to complete the trifecta of Queen songs. Hey, did you know that the trees are made of Jesus? It's true. Speaking of plants made of Jesus, here's the Shuckmeister with the latest on Giorno and Gappy parallels.
Oh, I was supposed to talk about Giorno and Gappy? I mean, I'm only here because you promised me pics of your JoJolion meme folder. Right, you know me, you love me, or you hate me. Basically, a little while back, I made a video talking about how Gappy shared some influences from Giorno. That sort of galvanized our conversations, and now I'm finally here to talk about JoJolion. Gappy and Giorno certainly share many similarities. Both are seen by the fanbase at large as being more stoic and focused compared to the other JoJos. Brutal murderers have stands named after Prince albums, and both of their outfits correlate more with their stands designs than most characters. And while the anime adaptation of Golden Wind was airing, it was pretty difficult not to notice more similarities between the two. I'm not sure if that was Araki's intention from the beginning, but he might have been taking inspiration from himself. The Rokakaka acts as a proxy stand arrow, with the regular one performing a basic equivalent exchange on the user himself, while the grafted one uses another person as collateral. The Rokakaka, or I guess I should say Lokakaka 6251, cartel shares many similarities to Passione from Part 5, from their smuggling practices to their members' fights against the main cast. Did you ever wonder where 6251 comes from? JoJo 6251, also referred to as Hirohiko Araki's World, is an art book produced during the early stages of Part 4. I feel like this is an attempt to hammer home the similarities with Diamond is Unbreakable, but the more I think about it, the more I see Gappy as the ultimate JoJo. His name is an influence of 3 JoJos: Joseph, the Josehu in Josehumi, Jotaro, the Kujo in Kujo, and Josuke Higashikata in, well, his adoptive name. The Rokakaka itself, like I mentioned, is a proxy stand arrow, but the new Rokakaka can be seen as a Requiem arrow of sorts, and with how the events of the Dangerous Pursuit arc played out, it's basically rehashing a lot of the Requiem Plays Quietly arc in the best way possible. The head doctor's omnipotent presence is reminiscent of Chariot Requiem, a black figure stand amalgamation that slowly walks around defending the MacGuffin of the part. Chariot defends the Requiem arrow through the use of body swaps and fusing realities together. It can be be seen as a calamity itself. Things are being drawn toward each other against their own will. Stands are no longer subject to the whims of their users. The head doctor is bending reality too, being everywhere at every moment, based on karma to drive the power of its calamity and hurl objects at each other. If we take the Dangerous Pursuit arc to be at an equivalent point in the story as the Requiem Plays Quietly arc, this means JoJolion should be wrapping up pretty soon, probably within the next 2 years or so. Ha, remember that time I insinuated that Ojiro could be Jofo material and he died instantly? Good times.
Honestly, I wasn't too on board with the idea that JoJolion was meant to seriously emulate Golden Wind in any way, but I've grown fonder of the concept as time has gone on. It would make sense in a lot of ways, especially when you take into consideration how often Giorno and Gabi are treated as identical Christ-like figures. Nothing here is quite one-to-one, but there's a handful of details that do suggest some deliberate connections. I've had my eye on the site in Birdie Stadium recently for a number of reasons. I think it's very likely to be the location where JoJolion's finale takes place, because of how often it's brought up in the story and alluded to, despite the fact that we haven't had a single arc that takes place there. If we're calling back to Golden Wind, then the stadium would make a pretty great substitute for the Roman Colosseum. Hell, it even kinda looks like it architecturally. But we'll just have to see. Oh, and hey, if you're still itching for more JoJo content, I recently made a guest appearance over on the Shuckmeister's channel for his JoJo plot twist video, and you'll never guess which part I talk about. Head on over there and give it a look-see.